2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. One of the joys of aging and doing it at least healthfully, at least for the most part, is being woke to all the chicanery that goes on in modern-day technology, right? We all have the cell phones and do all this stuff. Major League Baseball and cheating in the modern era. It has been brought to the forefront by the Houston Astros. Now it's affected the Red Sox, the Mets. Who knows what effect it'll have on the Orioles. But I'm reaching to baseball people this week. We're going to be at the Super Bowl next week down in Miami doing nothing but football. I thought this cheating scandal would allow me to go through the Rolodex a little bit. Gregg Olson, affectionately known as the Otter in these here parts for you young folks, was a pretty good pitcher back in the day. He was one of my first sort of pals with the Orioles when I covered the team 1991, 92, 93 as they made the transition from 33rd Street to Camden Yards. Otter, welcome in. I don't even know what to say this far gone because I'm 51, right? And I guess I've been through, as you have, strikes, steroids, Pete Rose, Hall of Fame votes, brushback pitches, all sorts of things. This is not why I traded baseball cards. You and I are the same age as a kid, or you could do it. I fell in love with it. Man, we've just come a long, long way to guys wearing wires in game and tipping pitches. I mean, it's insane, right?
I think it is, yeah. I'd love to say that it's never been done before, but I put it out on my Twitter earlier last week that, the White Sox were famous for having a blinking light on their scoreboard back in the late 80s. And then Cleveland was, I thought Cleveland got caught in the mid-90s using 3 cameras out in center field to let people know the location and if it was a breaking ball or a fastball. So, what you're seeing is kind of the same thing. These guys, I guess, nowadays aren't as original using a trash can lid to bang on when, the guys back in the 90s were smart enough to at least use 3 cameras and flip lights on and off when a certain pitch was coming.
Well, the gamesmanship of it all, right? Like, guys of your era got screwed out of a lot of money with collusion. There were strikes. There was he said, she said. You lost a chance to maybe play in a World Series. Like everybody did. There was no World Series, right? So, we've been through sort of the ugly of all of the battles, the racial battles, the owners versus the players and all of this stuff. But, the gamesmanship has always been a part of this, right? Like the stealing signals, the tipping pitches, whatever chicanery and whatever ethos you guys had on the inside about brushback pitches or purpose pitches or any of that stuff, we can only say that technology would exacerbate this, right? Like, you're a smart guy, you know what I mean? You did this a long time. You're always looking for some sort of an edge. When video came out, I mean, it was sort of how Tony Gwynn, he was one of the first adopters trying to beat all you guys up and figuring out how to, slice off a foul ball so he could single off you and, some odd count if he got behind. Whatever the edge would be, steroids, obviously, but this, the policing of this, right? Like, where are we with this? Because the policing of the sport has always, I think, been integral, going back to Bowie Kuhn or whenever they threw out Fay Vincent to say, we don't really have a policeman now. We have an executive managing the money. The NFL's run into a lot of problems with that with Roger Goodell. But policing the game, and you guys like you being in the game where it was alleged to be self-policed by its own code. Dude, I don't know that that's working with billionaires. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know that it really worked with steroids when the union was fighting for all you guys not to pee in a bottle or have your blood taken. I don't know where the push and the pull is, but boy, we're really getting far away from like why we love the game when this is a focus of the offseason about something that feels Black Soxy to me, especially because they won, right?
No, I totally agree. This does feel Black Soxy, and I'm proud of Major League Baseball for going out and I love AJ Hinch and I played with Cora and they're good guys, but they've gotten off the path and to the point of where winning is more important than integrity and the ethos of what baseball was or is. But I'm proud of Major League Baseball for suspending these guys and getting or banning them or wherever that issue lies right now. Disappointed in the fact that what I've heard that the players had immunity in all this. So for their testimony and ratting out the coaches and whoever else was in charge of it, if some of these players were using buzzers, wires, like the social media is saying, these guys need to be suspended for a year and no salary and see what that tastes like. But I think that's off the table right now. But if it keeps going deeper and further, I'm pulling.
And it's going to, right? I mean, I guess that's the point. Like, you and I, we're old guys now. We've watched this, especially in the accelerated era of social media where a dude sitting in his apartment literally was just putting together video available on the web of the trash cans. You know what I mean? Like, what they were doing. Apparently, a lot of players knew about it. Like Bauer has been loud about it. Like, and every guy like you that ever did this has a voice now. And by the way, you can follow Gregg Olson at Gregg Olson 2Gs OLSON 30. Gregg Olson 30 out on Twitter, former Oriole and all around sane dude when it comes to these baseball issues. But look, man, I remember back in the day getting to know a couple of you guys and going out and having a beer and hearing some of the stories of the stuff that really does go on, like the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen mound was crooked. Can you confirm that at the Old County Stadium?
I don't remember it being crooked, but like I said, it's been 25 years or so since I was actually ever on that mound. But no, the Cleveland Indians bullpen mound was about 8 inches shorter than the game mound.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry, maybe I confused the stories over the years, but I was pretty sure it was Milwaukee. But yeah.
No, so you go walking into the game, and you're locked and loaded from this mound, and then all of a sudden you get into this big steep mountain of a mound in Cleveland, and your first 4 or 5 pitches are all over the map. But
what is that? But is that the same as deflating a football in a football game so you don't fumble? I mean, I don't.
That's just home field gamesmanship. You can do it. You can do it to your other bullpen mounds. The deflating of the football. That's cheating.
Well, I mean, so hang on, Otter. You said something off the path, like about your buddies that played who now are going to wear a scarlet letter for however long. I mean, Mark McGuire's been coaching for 10 years, right? Like, so I don't know how long you wear your scarlet letter. We'll find out whether Bonds and Schilling and, these guys ever get in the Hall of Fame or whether that even matters. But you said, I took the quote from you, those guys got off the path. I guess what I'm asking, and if I were a teenager and you were my dad, I'd say, where's off the path, Dad, right? Like, where is bending a rule? Where is clearly, cheating? And then there's wearing a wire, which I think, come on, man. Like, all of us could say that that's not part of baseball, right? Like, but reading other guys. I mean, Tim Flannery, had a long post, and I know you know him from around the game. Everybody loves Tim Flannery. Everybody has seen Tim Flannery play the guitar at some point. And he said he was doing, 20 years trying to steal signs, and everybody else was doing it, and that's sort of the code of the game that guys in the game know. It's almost like professional wrestling, Otter. It's like what's kayfabe and what's not, what's brass knuckles, And we all know in professional wrestling, there are no rules. There really aren't. There's no written rules. There's real umpire in baseball. They're gambling on this, Greg. That's the hard part for me.
Well, you know what? The path is every man has his own path, and I think this line that everybody has is the technology coming into play and being used by the players at home to their advantage when the other team doesn't have that ability is the line. And if you want to go and, watch Trevor Bauer throw and you spend enough hours on it, he's going to tip his pitches at some point. And if you're spending that much time watching video feed and then you can take it into the game, good on you. And that was what Flannery was saying, was he spent hours looking at third base coaches trying to decipher their signs. And so there's that fine line. If I'm stealing signs from second base, from the catcher to the pitcher, then that's on the pitcher and the catcher for not being smart enough to disguise their signs. And this thing that's going on right now with the Astros, the Red Sox, I don't know if the Mets are involved yet, who knows, but this is just flat out cheating where they're sitting inside the dugout and getting the sign and then basically screaming out, "Here comes a fastball," because the only way they know this is they're watching a feed. And that's just flat wrong. So I'm hoping Major League Baseball blows up all the little offices inside the tunnels. And, anybody caught wearing a wire is out for life, make something so steep that these guys are smart enough not to even do that.
Gregg Olson joining us here talking baseball. What are you outraged, disgusted? Look, at this point, I'm 51. Like I said, I'm not surprised, right? Like I read Lords of the Realm when I was a young man, and I know the baseball cards I traded. We know the stories of Mickey Mantle and the Wheaties box, and the tragedy of real life in many cases. But at some point, they've lost the honor of like where this thing's going and who's in charge. They threw me out 15 years ago because they were afraid of me asking questions about like why this stuff was happening. But it feels like this inside secret that Mike Fiers, kind of took to the street. It really does remind me of the WWE a little bit in that, or even steroids and Ken Caminiti or Jose Canseco, to say that, the pioneer gets the arrows, but it's hard to tell the truth when everybody's lying, right? Like, and the sheer volume of people. Can you imagine you're a 22-year-old kid coming up from AAA and you walk into the clubhouse, you find out this is going on, and the secret society that you'd have to keep, and then 3 weeks later you get dealt to the Nationals or whatever. I don't know. Like, it seems like a scheme to rob a bank that you let everybody in on, and now you're wondering why people are screaming. They're screaming because it was wrong when they walked into it. They knew it was wrong, and they were a part of holding up the bank, and now they don't want to go to jail as part of it. And guys are getting the scarlet letter.
Yeah, I don't know where this is all going to go, but Fiers coming out and saying it, man. Look, he's got to play against these guys, and he knows, and that's why it's kind of stupid. Everybody knew the White Sox were doing something, but they only gave it to the 3 or 4 guys that were going to be there for their life. Ventura, Frank Thomas, and I'm not accusing anybody because I don't have any proof. It's just a legend that, spreads around and passes around. But for the Astros to have everybody that knows it, then, you guys aren't very smart, A. You're cheating, B, and you got caught, and then now, here it comes. But this is, it's like, at some point in the 90s, you realize that people were doing steroids, and there was a lot of them. And you're outraged, but there's nothing you could do about it because there was nothing, legal, illegal, in definition.
But was there a point where some grown-ups in the room went to the Players Association and said, guys, we're the real people are getting squeezed out here. What are you doing? How are you? Why are we negotiating for the benefit? And I guess because chicks dig the long ball and the salaries were going up, and I guess everyone felt the drift of that one way or another. And then the competition of that guy's got a job because he's using and I don't. 20 years later, that's the part of it that honestly, when I was your age and you were in the middle of it, and I didn't even think about that part of it other than the physical part of like the needles, the usage, the secrecy, the guys that blew up 25 pounds in one off season that kept happening over and over again, and how the stats would then help them one way or another. I think it was like a slow thing that took a lot of people a long time to catch on to the fact that it actually happened. This is 2 years later, right? Like this is going on with the Astros. But if enough people are in on it, somebody is going to whistleblow on something that's so obviously egregious, right? Like for you, as an example, I saw this for the first time, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days ago. When I'm on my phone and I saw Altuve grabbing his jersey. Don't grab my jersey. Don't grab my jersey. Like the first time you saw that, knowing all of the rest of this, knowing the trash cans from November and December, and you see this and you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, this went from trash cans. This went from taking $20 in the paycheck a week to let's just go take all the money no one will ever know, you know? And it is fat. I mean, like, when I saw that, my wife and I saw that together. It was on her iPad. And we both looked at each other and were like, are you kidding me? I don't. And a guy like you that played the game, all I could think about was if I'm the pitcher of any era, oh my God, like this is your worst nightmare, right?
Oh, this is I mean, you start guessing. Like somebody pulled me up on Twitter about the 2-1 Chapman slider that Altuve took out in Game 6, Game 7, whatever it was for the deciding blow. And I was trying to explain how he'd been looking for it because there's no way that he's just going to come off fastball and, hit a 2-1 slider for a home run. He had been looking for it. And they were like, no, you're wrong. And I was like, well, yeah, whatever. Nice talking to you. And this explains how you're looking for a 2-1 slider. You know it's coming. And so you run through your life, and me as a pitcher, man, if they got me at some point, knowing there was a trash can in the back or something else, yeah, I'm trying to, get a little blood out of it, and I'm pissed. So, I've been out of the game for too long now, but this is just over the top. This is one of those, past the point of any sort of integrity whatsoever, and yay on Major League Baseball if they take away and somehow, take away the 2017 one, and if they can figure out the 18 one, then do that too. It's just, this is beyond cheating. Well, it's not beyond cheating. Cheating is cheating. So it's just beyond, any line that I had drawn in baseball of where, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying is the old adage, but this is pretty bad.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I guess just the open-mindedness of all of this is saying you're always thinking the world's going to get better, right? Like, and you were of the era where Grimsley's crawling through crawls at Jacobs Field to steal bats out of, umpires' lockers that are corked. Corked bats, right?
We needed power hitters corking their bats, and one of them's still on the Hall of Fame ballot. He was corking his bat, and that was one of those where, we knew about it, and man, if he ever took me deep with a supposed cork bat, and I was calling it out and getting him caught right there and then. So that's kind of what happened with Fires. He just said, you know what, I ain't doing this. I'm not going to go play against those guys and have them cheating against me, because I know that they won't stop, and I know they'll do it on everybody, and they'll do it every time they're at home. So he called it out, and good on him that he had to know it when he was playing for it, and he took advantage of it when he was pitching there.
Gregg Olson's been my pal for going on 3 decades now. You can follow him out on Twitter at Gregg, 2 G's, Olson, Olson 30. Man, you're back in the South living a good life, right? Going back to, you're back near college in Auburn and all that good stuff, and didn't make it back out to the friendly heart of the Midwest. You've lived everywhere, though, right? You've lived every corner of this country and visited for 15, 20 years playing ball everywhere. You're back where you went to school, huh?
Yeah, I moved back last year and finished my degree, which I never finished, with the O's drafting me my junior year and long ago. So
congratulations,
I did that.
Man. What's your degree in?
Thank you. It's interdisciplinary studies. At this point, when you're 50 years old, you're just trying to get it finished and check that box. And got a minor in history and a minor in psychology. So check that box, and now I'm just waiting to hear from the O's and ESPN to see what the announcing schedule is going to look like for 2020.
Well, man, it's always great to have you aboard and talk a little ball. And, we're all brokenhearted here on the football side of things, on the back end of
No,
Lamar. And, I'm going to be in Miami all next week with a broken heart looking up at Patrick Mahomes on one side and Garoppolo on the other side. But the baseball story, I just wish we had happier times here, right? Like, there is a team in Washington kicking this franchise's ass up and down. We have a lease that now is – we have 162 games left of Oriole baseball, guaranteed to Camden Yards in Baltimore via contract. I need to see a new lease. I want to see something that's going to benefit the city. I'm wearing my Baltimore Positive gear, Otter, and, this is an important year in a lot of ways. And Elias and Mydell coming from the Astros side of things, there's going to be questions for them as well. I think there's questions for everybody in baseball as to what they knew and how they knew it, right? Like, that's when I say the WWE, sort of the kayfabe part of it or the steroid part for Major League Baseball, because it really feels like this was not a secret. Like, there are unearthings of interviews after games with, like, let's say Strasburg after a game saying stuff to the effect of, hey, we know they're doing this, that, this was not secrets are hard to keep in Major League Baseball, right? They just are.
Oh, yeah. No, they're very difficult, and that's why I was saying, the team Chicago, they kept it to their 3 or 4 guys that they knew were going to be lifers, and everybody else didn't get the memo. And everybody gets the memo when a trash can's banging inside the dugout, which is still, I mean, how do we go 25 years and scoreboards are being used, and now all of a sudden these guys aren't smart enough not to use a trash can lid? Everybody's going to hear that. It's just, the wiring is now going to take it, and like I said, I hope some players get suspended. I really do. I'm not usually you don't hear me saying that, and the steroids thing, and I've gone through that, and I've gone through other cheating aspects of guys corking their bats. But this one, I'm hoping some guys get suspended.
Where are you on sandpapering and cheating on scuffing baseballs? I mean, that's such an art form, right? For someone in your position that held a baseball for a living and threw a curveball and made the ball do things that I could never make happen. But of course, I'm missing my pointer finger on my right hand. But for that was always a part. I mean, Negro and Perry are in the Hall of Fame, right? The cheating part for pitchers was always viewed a little differently, I think, than corking a bat, right? Which would get you buzzed by Don Drysdale.
Yeah, you know what? Man, you knew guys knew who was doing that. There are no secrets. Who's doing stuff, who's corking their bat. Who's on steroids. Who's scuffing the baseball. For the most part, you got to catch them, and when you did try to catch them, and there'll be 2 names that I'm not going to name. That one of them's in the Hall of Fame, and another one does a lot of television baseball, and both of them cheated, and everybody knew it, but the umpires didn't want to go out there and try to catch them, and so you knew the guys that were scuffing, and it was part of the game. I didn't do it. I didn't use pine tar. If I, felt like it might have helped me, yeah, I probably would have tried it. So,
well, isn't that the nature of the game, though? I mean, the guys were sticking needles in themselves because it was going to help their game, and I mean, I think when you're that close and that competitive, you would do quote unquote anything to get an edge. And now we've taken that to, well, would you wear a wire that would alert you? Can we build a system so I know when the fastballs come? It's just really, and and I go back to the beginning, bro. Who's going to police it? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of a cop is Rob Manfred, right? And we've seen this problem when the commissioner works for all of the owners, right? And how much latitude they have to get away with whatever a death penalty would look like for a franchise and owner. To your point, the way you see it is, hey, the players gave up the coaches, right? Like, that's what it looks like right now, right? I mean, Altuve looks like he's going to go out there and make $30 million and go hit the baseball again, and like no one's going to throw at his head. I mean, because that's the way the game is, right? So I'm really fascinated because I don't think we're in the beginning of this, dude. I mean, if it's a day, I don't even think the sun's come up yet for what we're going to see, right, on this story. And what's going to happen here from a policing standpoint in a game where there are cameras literally everywhere, and they love it that way because they get the trajectory of this and the velocity of that and the angle of that. That's they love that. Now, how you weaponize that and then how you police it. Sig Meidel, the blackjack dealer, would say we had cameras around the tables because guys were good with their hands, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, and with the players, if they were granted immunity, then we're not going to see any player ramifications right now. I think that they got to start with probably getting rid of every one of the video rooms right inside the dugouts that the guys used to go watch the last pitch or go look at something. Those are all gone, and I'd be another fix is locking the video room door where nobody can be in there during the game. And, that's the one that's sitting inside the middle of the clubhouse that everybody uses. And there are probably people in there during the game. And these people are just as culpable as the players are because they're in there watching the signs or sending the buzzer or whatever they're doing. And so, all video rooms are locked and you got to have the umpires or you got to have somebody go in there and do it. But I don't know how much deeper it's going to go with people getting suspended or kicked out unless somebody else comes up and gives up another team. There's nothing else they're going to do because they already gave the players immunity, so you're not going to see Altuve get a half a year suspension. And
I think his life just
$15 million.
changed, though, right? Like the way he's going to step into batters' boxes and be the beloved little guy you want to put in your pocket.
Yeah.
He'll never be that
he's
again. And that press conference the Astros marching those guys out. They just had some. You did this for a long time, and you did this under good conditions and bad conditions, during strikes, after big losses, after big wins. I don't know. I haven't had to sit there and talk about how I lied and cheated and stole to get everything I have, right? And then to pretend like, oh, well, that was yesterday. I'm not here to talk about really.
I can't even watch those, Bregmans, all these guys that were, the good guys and fun to watch and fun to root for. Now you just kind of look at him in the press conference. Like I said, I can't even watch Bregman's. Somebody captioned it on Twitter, and it was good enough for me that was like, I'm never watching that guy again. And Altuve is the same way. And then if it starts falling, some of the Boston guys, you're going, man, I liked a couple of those guys too, but all right, not doing that one anymore. They've moved into the Albert Bell, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, circle of not liked by anybody. That one's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, the pariah thing. Dude, any thoughts on the Orioles? I know you've been coming back here and working. I have nothing to say about it. They don't let me in, and until they let me in, I'll say nothing's changed. But I don't – Jose Iglesias is all – it's not like they've marched forward here in the offseason with names we know, but this is part of the program, right? This was part of what they would say. This is how we built the Astros, right? Literally, this is where they'd step in and say, well, year 3 in Houston, it was this way, and this guy was doing this, and Altuve was here, and Bregman was there, and we were bringing guys through the system. I don't know how the local guys are going to have to position this because I know the one thing they're going to lose a lot of baseball games again this summer. I hope they find more Trey Mancinis, right? Through this process and more pitchers who can pitch. There are a couple of signs of life, but it's not like we really have hope here of a pennant race this summer, Otter.
No, I don't think I don't think anybody realistically did, but the Orioles aren't going to go out and get free agents because there's not a whole lot to put around them. And you want to see, this is for me it's 88 moving into 89, where I think the only deal we did was trade Eddie Murray because, they wanted him out of town. And so we got, Mike Devereaux and Brian Holton, and that was the only deal the Orioles did between 88 and 89. And then it was just bring up a bunch of homegrown guys. So it's going to be Hunter Harvey and John Means, and you hope Trey Mancini and a couple of these guys start to pop where you did your due diligence and you hope the minor leagues can start filling it up, and then in 2 years you go get a couple of free agents and they fill them around Means and Mancini and Hunter Harvey, and we got a good team.
I don't know when we're going to get back to like talking about the actual players and the games and all that, because there's going to be 2 months of this on the fallout and spring training and all that from the back end of what we call the Black Sox scandal. I don't think I'm stretching it out to say that. I mean, you played the game for a long time, and from the outrage that I'm getting, not just from guys of your era, Bly Levin, who I saw you retweeted, even the modern era, that, where is the line? And I guess that's the question I'm going to keep asking, and I'm going to keep bringing up off the path. I appreciate you giving me that, Greg. How far off the path?
This is Black Sox.
Hey, man.
This is Black Sox.
I will stay in touch with you. When you're back here, make sure we don't get you a tourist crab cake, man. It's always great to have you aboard and spend a little time with you, even though it's, I'd rather be talking about the Orioles in a pennant race like we were a few years ago, but we'll get back to that at some point, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, brother. Gregg Olson, the Otter. Gregg Olson 30. The way to follow him out on Twitter with a spirited baseball debate. I'm doing a little baseball debate. You're going to hear from our former governor, Mayor Martin O'Malley. He's got a book, Smarter Government, that I've been keeping here. He joined us at Fateley's over the weekend. It was a compelling conversation, unlike I had never spoken to Martin O'Malley in my life. I did not vote for Martin O'Malley. But it was an illuminating conversation. Learned a lot. Hope you will, too. We're at the Super Bowl all next week. We're featuring the 7th District Congressional race here this week as part of Baltimore Positive. We're also featuring all the mayoral candidates from T.J. Smith and current Mayor Jack Young, Brandon Scott, as well as Thoreau Vignarajah. We've had long-form conversations with all of those folks, as well as Mary Washington and Mary Miller coming up after I get back from Super Bowl 54 coverage in Miami. So we're trying to bring everybody in. I'm going to the mayor debates this weekend, and you can follow along at Twitter with me personally or at WNST, where we stick to sports there. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.